Hello, and welcome to the Cybersecurity Career Awareness Week panel. My name is Casey O'Neill, and I'm a college and career coach for ElevateEdAZ. ElevateEdAZ is the education initiative of the Greater Phoenix Chamber Foundation that is connecting business and education. Whether you decide to enroll in college or enter the workforce, ElevateEdAZ will make sure you get experiences that help you succeed in school and beyond. Today's discussion with industry leaders and education partners will help you gain a stronger awareness of careers in cybersecurity. We are aligning with the National Cybersecurity Career Awareness Week campaign to call attention to the contributions to society and innovations that cybersecurity practitioners make. We'd like to extend our appreciation to today's panelists for their willingness to share their knowledge and expertise, as well as insights into college and career resources that will help you succeed during and after high school. We will begin our panel with quick introductions from each of the panelists, who will share more about themselves and their role. Sandra, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Sandra Scirpo. I work for NortonLifeLock. I actually work in an organization called Consumer Support and Inside Sales Group within NortonLifeLock, and my responsibility includes business analytics and governance for our group. So nice to be here with you today.
Great. And Bob, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Bob Shaker. I also happen to work for NortonLifeLock. I am the head of Norton Gaming, so I lead all the things that we do around gamers and products for gamers and the entire effort of making sure we take care of gamers and look after them. I'm also a Twitch affiliate, and I've been doing cybersecurity now for like 39 years, so it's been a while.
Great. Well, we will love to hear more about your trajectory and, your experience there. To kick this off, I am actually going to start with our questions first. So, Sandra, I'd like to direct this to you. We know that a majority of cybersecurity careers are not only in traditional tech companies, but also industries such as entertainment, healthcare, and banking. Why is cybersecurity important in your industry?
Yeah, I mean, clearly within our industry specifically, right? That's our business, so it's clearly very important. We're out there to protect the data that's out there and our consumers. So it's something that we take very seriously. I think, Casey, maybe the other piece of it I would say is, we in the last few years in particular, we've seen the cyber threats and landscape change so incredibly because we are living in an incredibly digital world, and we're so super connected globally that we've seen so much out there. So I think it's incredibly something that is relevant, regardless of what industry you are working in. If there is personal data that's floating out there, you're leaving a data footprint out there. So that's something that you want to be aware how. Basically what's out there, and then how to protect yourself and just make sure that you're aware of what's available out there for you. So
yeah, I mean, that is such an important note for us to realize that it's out there. And so Bob, I know our students are both involved in cybersecurity and software development pathways. Can you tell us a little bit more about how cybersecurity relates in the general software development field?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of different ways. And this is, I think, one of the key pieces of being part of cybersecurity is that you can be part of any part of the pathway, regardless of where you are in the development cycle or what part of that. Cybersecurity, if it's front of mind, always ensures that we develop products that are as safe as they can be. So when you think about, the types of things that are going on as you're going through the development of software, there's a lot of different components. There's the database code, there's the app code, there's the middleware layer, there's the net code. There's a whole bunch of different, pieces in there, and cybersecurity plays a role across all of them, making sure as you develop, you're developing in a safe way. And then it plays a role around them as a wrapper to make sure they all work together in a safe way and that they're all tested to make sure they stay safe. So cybersecurity really spans the gamut from the very, very first thoughts that come into your mind about developing an app. And if you keep that tenet of good cybersecurity through the entire development lifecycle, coming out the other end, you actually have a much easier time.
All right. Well, can you give us a little bit more information about the different cybersecurity fields or software development fields that are at your company?
I can give you some at our company. I'll give you some in general as well, because I think you'll find, there's a lot of them.
Okay.
So, when it comes to cybersecurity, you can go all the way from the top of the ladder, which is called the CSO or the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer. And this person is normally tasked with one of two jobs, and sometimes both, is, making sure that the business around cybersecurity is being managed well. So they kind of lead the whole thing. They make sure everyone's focused on one mission. But within that, you have people who are specifically focused on making sure the actual connections between the machines, the network layer, is protected. Firewall administrators, network administrators, VPN administrators, depending on the size of the company, you have that entire hardware layer. Then you get down into the different pieces of platform and software. So this is what I think makes working in IT really interesting, because you can be cybersecurity in the database group, and you can learn everything about how to do and build the most secure databases to make sure that data is obfuscated correctly and that it's entered into the database in a way that's safe and extracted safely. There's the middleware architects, engineers, and developers who have the responsibility of taking that front-end app that we're all used to using and that back-end database and making sure all that code is written properly and that they're actually being audited. So when you have a security specific job in that space, your job is to be able to read that code and know when the code is opening a hole. And then there's the front side of that, where you have the pen testers, and I'll tell you right now, that's a commodity thing. Nobody should take that as a long-term career unless you're starting a company, to make it even simpler. But you still have this whole front end where there's these controls, and we need to have controls. And what those are the things that tell us how we should secure an item. And if that item is a database and we need to secure it, that control might say, no one has super administrator access to this. Well, you need someone who writes the controls. Then you have auditors who audit the controls. Then you have the security analysts, the security engineers and architects who have to take those controls and actually design the systems and implement them. So it really is a fascinating place to be in cybersecurity. And I talk to schools all over the country, and one of the things I try to tell students is almost anything you can imagine wanting to do and any industry you'd want to be a part of, cybersecurity is going to be there. So those different jobs can also give you the opportunity to not get tired or bored of something. You can be cybersecurity on the network side for a few years and then be cybersecurity on the architect side. Then you can be cybersecurity on the audit side. Then you can be cybersecurity on the leadership side. So there's so much opportunity once you get there. And not to forget what Sandra does. You have the entire support side. Like, we have people who not only just answer phone calls when a customer has a problem, but my dad had a problem, called our support, and they actually had a cybersecurity expert connect to his machine and clean it. So you have every aspect. So anything you could say, wow, I really wish I could work with that part of technology, you could also be doing cybersecurity.
I would have not known how many directions you're able to go to, in these pathways. So thank you for really, diving deep into that.
Sure.
And so, now that you spoke a little bit about all the directions that you're able to go with it, for high school students, what are the skills and, experiences are needed to break into cybersecurity? And, Bob, you might be able to give a little more background on this, for these specific skills, but also Sandra, after, if you'd like to jump in and, tell us about other skills that, you see just for even working for NortonLifeLock that, could be skills that students can start working on as well.
See, that's a right way to ask that question, by the way, is to make sure everyone has an opportunity, because there's different skills for different things, right? And it's really important to get everyone's point of view. So one, it's really important to understand, I know this is going to sound pretty lame, but computers, okay? And what I mean by understanding computers is not, this is a mouse and that's a keyboard and I play games or I surf the web or I do Insta. It's really understanding computers. So first, you have to understand what an operating system is and what it does. Understand what your BIOS is. If you don't know what that is, you should be Googling that after this, but not in class. You should be understanding what an app is. When you pick up this phone and you're interacting with it, you're interacting with an app that's on an OS, an operating system. So it's really important in cybersecurity to understand what each of those things are. If I was going to take you guys down a layer deeper than that, I would say you really want to understand like a Linux operating system, understand how to get into Linux, what each one of those different directories means, where the log files are, understand coding, understand what it is to write codes. I wrote my first commercial software and sold it at age 16. You gotta know code, because if you know code, you can look at anyone's code and be able to find the problems. So understanding the OS, understanding log files, understanding code, and then understanding security, just what good and bad security means. You have to know what that is. What's a SQL injection? What does it mean to, what does malware even do when we say malware? Look at different pieces of malware, like the write-ups on them on Wikipedia, and understand what that code was doing, so that when you look at someone else's code, you go, oh my goodness, you hard-coded the password in the app? Like, you can't do that, right? Or, hey, the way you've written this allows somebody to put a malaligned string into the URL, which will take advantage of that code, which will allow direct access to the back end through the database into the network to the HR system, and they're going to steal everyone's social security number. So it's really, you got to understand computers, you got to understand the code, and then you've got to understand what it means to be good security. And at the high school level, honestly, you guys have more access today than I ever did. I'm pretty old, as you can tell by the grays. You guys can, with the access to Raspberry Pis and your mobile devices and emulators, you can totally tear apart into different operating systems and start learning where those log files are. There's actually a really cool game on Steam. It's a hacking game. I don't remember the name, but it actually will teach you how to be a good security person, and it's a game and it's fun. So I think that's where I'll stop. But those are the things I think you need to think about.
That's awesome. I could keep listening to you, Bob, actually. I took some notes down. That was good. And Casey, I think your original question, I think that I can add on to, I think you were asking about what paths, right, can you take within cybersecurity or within companies?
Oh, I would just love to hear more about your input about, what are the skills and experiences that students can break into these careers. And I know Bob might have a little more experience necessarily in the cybersecurity field, but just even your experience working for NortonLifeLock.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to share. I think that was part of my thought in this, was bringing together kind of the diverse perspective from Bob and from myself. I've been in NortonLifeLock for about 2 years, and so my career has varied greatly. I did a lot of client management before, and working in particular in the financial institution specifically, where they outsourced all of their loyalty incentive programs to us. And I'll tell you, I think that there's, so I didn't set out my career path in cybersecurity. I didn't set out and say, Norton was where I wanted to be or where I wanted to work. But I think one of the things to remember, I think especially in high school, and as you're thinking about your next step, is that there are so many opportunities. Think about what you really love to do and where you would like to be, and really explore those paths and those options. My path has varied so much in terms of the different jobs that I've had, different organizations I've worked for. When I first graduated out of college, I did a dual degree. So I did psychology and supply chain management. Well, and then I went to Boeing and I went to the Kent Space Center, and that's where I worked initially, and that was my first job. So that exposure was quite different. And then I left there and I worked for American Airlines. But what I did in American Airlines was all of the food and beverages that you can contract and purchase and load on the planes. That was my responsibility set. That took me into a more of a marketing route. So I've had a lot of different variations in what I do. And now doing governance and business analytics, business analytics, I feel like has always been part of like every single job that I've had, but to actually own that track was something that I probably didn't even think about 5 years ago, and I think anytime that you're working through one, stay curious, always ask a ton of questions. And then as you're going through, you're accumulating a bunch of skill sets, and you'll be surprised how they all intermingle and make sense. And at the end of the day, it's about relationships and doing a really great job as you're working through whatever job that you're working through that's going to propel you forward. So that's probably what I'll add. I'll end there.
No, great advice. And I can definitely relate on that point, because my college major, or what I majored in, was a different route I took after I graduated. And so it's really those soft skills and those experiences that you can build during this time. But thank you. So now moving forward, we heard a little bit about what are the experiences, the skills that students can start to build upon. Bob, can I ask you more questions regarding what advice you have for students to pursue courses and certifications or dual enrollment in high school currently?
Are we asking what they can do in high school or what they'll do in the next step?
What they can do in high school now,
okay.
And then if you can transition to, what are the next steps that they can take?
So this is actually a really good question. I may not give you the answer you were expecting. I'm going to give you two pieces. So one, Sandra said something and you repeated it, which was kind of these soft skills. Like one of the things I tell students, the number one thing you can work on right now is how you're going to handle your interviews. When it comes time to hiring someone, and I've hired a lot of people over my career, the person who looks me in the eyes but isn't staring me down, the person who gives me a good handshake but doesn't break my fingers, the person who isn't embarrassed to talk to me and answer questions and actually smiles and makes it look like they actually want the job, usually ends up getting a bunch of extra bonus points. So I think it's really important, middle school and high school. I have one in high school. I have three that, are out of high school. High school and middle school can be challenging times. And as you're coming out of those, you have to start looking to put those experiences behind you as positively as you can. And when you go into that job interview, doing your best to be positive is going to be a huge job skill, huge. It's going to give you a lot of extra points. What you should be doing right now, if you want to go into technology that is more formal, is you can consider a few, there's a few things out there like A+ certification, and there's a couple other of the technology level certifications that you can still do in high school, whether you actually take them formally or just go through the practice sessions to understand those things. They're going to help you get that first job. A+ certification is something a lot of high schools are now pushing kids to get during high school, so that's why that one comes first to mind. I also there's a website that I will share with the organizers here that they can share with the students later, that has practice tests for tons and tons of different certifications in the space. I'll share it later only because I want to validate that it hasn't changed the URL. But there's some things at your age that you won't be able to do formally because a lot of them require you to have experience, which is kind of silly, right? Like, how do you move with that? Well, it's because these are certifications. They certify that you already know something. It's not education. It's two very different things. So A+ certification would say, you've learned enough about computers, like I said earlier, to be certified in knowing computers. That's a little bit of a leg up. But even Amazon, if there was one thing, honestly, if there's one thing I would say, go and check out, because it is everywhere. It's prolific in cybersecurity. Amazon has free classes in cloud services. They will teach you everything about cloud services, partly theirs, partly everyone's, and it's very easy. AWS online classes for free, and it will bring it up, and you just need an Amazon account. You don't need to pay for anything. It's 100% free, and it will teach you what a Kubernetes is. It'll teach you what cloud replication is. It'll teach you what containers are, all the technical stuff that you need to know, that you really should know now, because then when you enter either the job force or university and you have that little extra knowledge, it's going to help when a teacher is explaining to you, or your new employer is explaining something to you. You're going to go, I know what that is. I went through that Amazon class. So Amazon is actually a really good resource for that. So those are the things I think high school moving into college are the first things I would start doing from a technical perspective.
That is great advice, and I'm sure the students will walk away learning more about AWS. So thank you for that. Sandra, so, now that Bob told us a little bit more about how can we prepare now, and how can we prepare as we are going into college and career, could you give us a little bit more advice about how students maybe could connect with a mentor? Did you have a mentor as a career, and, are mentors important?
Yeah, so I think they are. I think they absolutely are. And throughout my life, in the last 20 years that I've been working in in a professional space, I've had companies where they have formalized mentor programs. I don't think you see that as much anymore. And the way that I approach mentorship really is that if there's someone that you admire, whether because they're working in the field that you want, or whether it's because they show leadership skills that you really want to emulate, I would reach out to them and say, this is something that I would love it if you had some time to spend with me either once a month or once every couple of months, and approach it and see if they're open to it. I think that it's up to you to really kind of reach out and create that network for yourself. I don't think it happens as often. I don't know if it ever did, but I don't see it very often where someone's going to come to you and say, hey, can I mentor you? It really is up to you to kind of figure that path out. But I do think that it's incredibly important. Even now, I mean, I don't necessarily, I would say I have people in the company that I work with now who I look up to and I have regular conversations with, but there's people that I've worked with across, the last decade or so that I keep in contact with, and maybe every, couple of months, or maybe it's once every 6 months, I'll reach out and have a conversation. And I learn so much every single time. So I think it's absolutely important to do that.
Great advice. And just to kind of circle on that, could you give us any advice on, how to connect with a mentor, maybe through social networking platforms? Would you advise for that, against that, and, platforms such as like LinkedIn or others?
Yeah, so I would, and I don't know what kind of sort of alum network you guys have from your coding academy, but I will say just even through some of the colleges, they'll do a lot of alumni type stuff that I volunteer at. So there may be different networks like that you can have access to, and you should definitely look into those opportunities. And I think LinkedIn is something I think I definitely utilize a lot. If I'm attending some sort of event, for example, and I end up coming across with someone who either spoke or was a speaker or that I spoke to that I admire, again, I always try and connect with them on LinkedIn. I definitely reach out and say, hey, I'd love to speak with you, and send them an invite. And if they're not interested, I mean, they're not interested, but I think a lot of time what I've found is that they're more than willing to. It usually goes pretty smoothly. So I would absolutely leverage LinkedIn.
All right. Well, so I'm going to ask one more question before we transition into the Q&A portion. But Bob, could you speak, and Sandra, you can add in as well too, but could you speak a little bit more about the opportunities that NortonLifeLock offers to high school students that, so they can apply their learning?
That's a very interesting question, and I'm not sure I'm equipped to answer it. So that's a good question, and I really don't know what NortonLifeLock offers for high school students. So I'm going to defer to see if Sandra actually knows the answer to that.
Yeah, I actually don't 100% know the question, but I will tell you the part that I do know is that we took an intern on, but he was actually in college this past summer. So we've done that. So I know that college level we do, high school level, yeah, same with Bob. I'm not sure that we have a program for that.
If you follow up with us after this, we can find out. I'm sure we have a team that handles that, and we can definitely funnel whatever we find, good, bad, or indifferent, to you guys. Okay. I do want to hop back on the mentor thing, just to say one thing. No matter what, if there's one most important thing you're going to do in your career, you have to find mentors. And what Sandra said, I couldn't agree with more. Find someone you're like, I want to be like them, and then hit them up. You all need to create. This is going to sound weird. You don't even have jobs yet. But I tell every senior, create a LinkedIn now. Create it now. Start building your network now. If you can find me on there, I will link with you just so you have a connection. But if you reach out to someone and say, I'm impressed, don't just make it, send a blank message, okay? That's not going to get anyone's interest. You tell that person why you think you want them to be a good mentor to you, why they fit what you're trying to accomplish in your life at the stage in your life. And then they, a lot of people will look at that and go, wow, this is a young person who's looking for guidance. And a lot of people won't turn that away. Don't be afraid to give up a mentor if they're a bad mentor. Take on more than one mentor. Use different mentors for different things. Some mentors are really good to help with career. Some are good to help with technical aspects of your career. Some are good to help you with emotional aspects of your career. But if you don't start building your mentor network, you'll just be behind. It won't stop you. But the earlier you start building a mentor network, and I have mentors that go back 20 years that I still talk to, and there's some mentors I don't talk to anymore because either I've, exceeded them, diverted from them, or they, got in trouble and I'm not, looking for them. So mentors are key. You gotta have them. You gotta have them.
Yeah. And just a quick add on the LinkedIn profile. This is something that, I don't know, Bob, if you find this to be true. I think once you put the LinkedIn together, make sure you have a professional photo of yourself in the LinkedIn profile. One, I hire a lot. I've been hiring for a really long time, and I will go check LinkedIn. And I think a photo speaks volume, and the type of photo you have on there speaks volume. So just make sure that's super professional. And then your social media pages, you'd be surprised, but clean those up. Make sure make sure anything that you have out there on yourself, go Google yourself, is stuff that you want to be found and be known for as you're entering kind of a workforce as well.
Yeah. So just one really important thing. One, no company can not hire you because of anything on social. So keep that in mind. We do not make decisions based on your social platform. My headshot on LinkedIn is not my face. It is my Twitch logo that was made by my oldest son, who's an artist. But it is a professional logo. It is not me doing something that, silly face or anything. But, the thing is, you put the picture of the person you want to depict. If you want to, listen, this is going to sound funny. If you want to join the circus and you put a picture of yourself with a suit and tie on, you're not getting hired for the circus.
True.
Put a clown nose on and do some juggling. I'm serious. If you want to work in gaming and you put the suit and tie on, that might work. Maybe you want to actually put a picture of yourself sitting at your computer. Like, think about who you want to be and then be that person. So mine is a logo and it's my face drawn in a cartoon. And that's because I lead Norton Gaming, right? So I can do that. Now in my company, it's my headshot, right? My professional headshot. I paid money to have someone take a professional photo and then do a whole lot of Photoshop to make it look good.
Well, I appreciate both of your responses, and this is advice that we can all take. You know, even as professionals, we can all take this advice. So thank you both for that. So now we're going to transition into Q&A. So our students have submitted a few questions. I'm just going to read them off from the first question submitted. So either one of you can answer these questions. So for the first one, what majors should those interested in a career in cybersecurity take?
Well, so some universities offer cybersecurity degrees. Not a bad place to start. Anything on the technical side, engineering side, those are all good in preparing you for that. But make sure you take something you enjoy. My two degrees are management and marketing. Technology was my hobby as a child, and it became my business as I grew up. But if you go to college and you take something because of the job you want, but every day of your life you hate it, you're probably doing something wrong. My last leader here at NortonLifeLock had a degree in fine arts and a minor in music theory. It's not just your degree that gets you a job. Unless you want to be a nurse or a doctor or a lawyer, then you have to have that degree. You can't get that job. Critical thinking is the number one thing. Good grades and a positive attitude are the thing that's going to get you out of college into a job. So one, if you want the technical aspect, go cybersecurity degree, go any of the computer majors, go, go anything technical, engineering degrees, and then transition. But don't do it if you hate it. Do what you love, because you're going to come out feeling positive and getting into cybersecurity, because the field just needs so many people. There's an entry point for just about everybody, as long as you remember the first thing I said: learn operating systems, learn apps, learn something about where log files live, understand what good security practices are, take that part of your life plus your degree and go get a job in cybersecurity.
I couldn't agree more. And, you know, I just appreciate both of your responses earlier, or just even throughout this, of really diving in your personal journey. Might have had a different, degree, but, where you're at now and how were those life experiences and, soft skills that you had to focus on, how did that really get you where you are? So I definitely appreciate both your responses to that question. And so for our next question, which two software development tools or skills do you find most useful in your work, and how do you recommend learning them? And so this question is more directed towards that software development side. So Bob or Sandra, if either one of you could answer this question.
Do you have an answer for that?
No, I don't. I'm going to defer to you, Bob.
Okay, so PowerPoint and Microsoft Excel. So let me explain why that's the answer and not the answer you're looking for, and then I'll give you the answer you're looking for. You can't neglect the ability to communicate information, and most ways of communicating that are going to be Word docs, Excel spreadsheets, and PowerPoint presentations. I cannot tell you how much you need to learn those three things. Okay, I don't care what job you have. You need those three. So write that down and go and figure it out now, because you can do it now.
Yeah.
Right? That's huge. As far as software development tools and skills, I would probably say, JavaScript, HTML5, that whole universe, and everything cloud related. So it goes back to my AWS response. So learn everything you can about JavaScript, HTML5, or a technology that interests you, but that one will is very broad and has a lot of resources to learn. And then everything you can learn about cloud, everything you can learn about cloud. And guess what? That's free and it's all over the web. Those two things, you can get tons of resources and you can learn those very easily. So I would definitely say those two things are the two that I would direct you towards.
All right. So we have another question, and I want to direct this to you, Sandra, since you work, directly with hiring. But what kind of people do you want to work with? Someone who's cautious or group-minded, curious? What type of people would you?
I think it's interesting, and rightfully we are now talking a lot about diversity and inclusion, but I'll say this. From a diversity and inclusion perspective, the way I staff my team always is diversity of thought, right? So I know that I'm not good at everything, and I'll never be, and I'm not going to strive to be. And so what I try and do when I'm staffing my teams up is making sure that I'm rounding out what I need in that group. And I think the question when it talks about like personality type, like being cautious, that sort of, I think I'm looking for people who are obviously team players, people who are smart and capable and can bring something to the table, but able to communicate and also work with the others well. Because at the end of the day, if you can't do that, if you can't work with your team, and if you can't actually convey what you want done, even if you're right, if you can't work well with the others, I just think that that's going to be a detriment for the entire team. So I always try to look for the right personality, and I think Bob touched on it earlier, which is, you got to have the skill set, but then you got to have a great positive attitude that comes along with it, and really be able to add to the team in terms of that culture and be able to drive that. So those are the things that I typically look for.
Bob, did you want to add onto that question?
I want to hire people that do everything I tell them to. No, I don't. So what Sandra said, I think it depends. You have to be one of these crazy smart people to be someone who doesn't get along with anyone and be left in a closet to just do work. So I think it is important that you're personable. Like, I like to work with my friends. So I make everyone at work my friend, right? That doesn't mean, you can come to work and be silly and not get the job done. So when I'm hiring people, I look for people who have the knowledge, who have the drive, who have a mission mindset. I want to get something good done in my life. I want to look back at my life and go, I'm good. I did good. I had a good time working. I made good products. I made people happy. So I'm always looking for someone who has the knowledge, has the tenacity to want to win. But in the end, I'm looking for the person who wants the job. I interviewed for one role 47 people. The 47th person, when I said to her, you don't have the actual technical skills that I need, she said to me, yeah, but I'm going to learn them and be the best person you've ever hired. And she was like dead serious. I hired her on the spot, and she ended up taking my place when I left my last company, and she's moved on to big things. So yeah, that's what you gotta show you want the job. And not everybody has a great day, so you're not going to smile every day, but show that you actually want to be there and you'll get the job.
Yeah, having ambition is key. And Sandra, I really appreciate your point about diversity in thought. So thank you both for that. I'm going to ask one more question, just due to time, as we're starting to wrap up today. But Bob, I'm going to direct this question to you. So what do you recommend for those who want to go into penetration testing, ethical hacking field in cybersecurity?
I founded the parent company of Norton in the old days, Symantec Global Incident Response Team. So people that wanted to do ethical hacking all worked on my teams globally. What I would recommend is you absolutely need to understand Windows, Linux, and Mac operating systems very, very seriously. I want to make sure if you come to me that you understand how to look through those log files, what it is when you find in those log files. I want to know that you know how to read memory. Want to know that you know how to read a registry. I want you to be able to pull memory and show me what that is. So I really recommend you get very technical. I think I'll be honest, pen testing is no longer a job. You can do pen testing for so inexpensive. It's all automated, but the ethical hacking and incident response is definitely the area where you could excel. And to do that, you really need to be you really need to be focused on understanding the technical aspects of what that means. So, and that, which then leads to the tools. In fact, if you want to do something, whoever asked that question, because I saw it get a couple thumbs ups, go and get yourself a Linux emulator so that you can run it inside Windows. Install a version of Linux called Kali, Kali, and then start playing around with Kali. Don't do anything stupid, because with Kali you could actually do stupid things that'll get like an FBI person knocking at your door. So don't go say, what's it like to try to hack a bank? You know, just try to learn the thing. Just because I did that as a kid before anybody knew what it was, and it did kick my career off, doesn't mean you should, because nowadays you go to jail. Okay. So definitely right now, go and install, well, after your classes, install Linux, install Kali Linux, but get a Linux emulator and start playing with that. And again, you got to learn everything with AWS, because all my investigators were traditional operating systems people, and we had to get them up to the cloud.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm sure students are, definitely going to remember this presentation from that last remark. So thank you. Before we wrap it up, do you both have any, closing thoughts or just any messages that you want to pass on to the students?
Go ahead, Sandra.
You know what? I appreciated the time here. I hope you guys learned a few things. And anytime you guys need anything or you guys have other questions and you want to reach out, I won't speak for Bob, but certainly if there's anything I can do for you, I'm happy to. So thank you.
Yeah, I just say LinkedIn. If you want to reach out, LinkedIn is the appropriate way to do that, or through the school. I also know there were a ton of other questions, and I was just starting to type answers to all of them, but they've disappeared from my screen for some reason. So if you guys want us to answer those, email us those. We'll email you responses back. Great.
I will definitely make sure that we pass on this information to our students, or if you two both have additional information of opportunities or anything else like that, please pass it on my way and I'll pass it on to our students. So. Cool. All right. Well, again, thank you to both of our panelists for their participation and valuable insights today. ElevateEdAZ is excited to continue providing virtual work-based learning experiences for students to garner employability skills and career development while distance learning. Thank you to our partner Zovio for your financial support of Elevate Your Network virtual conversation with local employer series. For more information on Elevate Your Network and other programs of ElevateEdAZ, follow us on social media or visit our website at www.elevateedaz.com. Be well, and we look forward to connecting again soon.